Hi, I'm Bill Wiese. So, some people write us and are confused about the word grave in the King James Version of the Bible. They state that the word grave never refers to hell or Hades. What they do not realize is that there are two prominent words in the Hebrew for the word grave. One is the word kiber, which means a burial site. The other word for grave is the word Sheol. Well, Sheol never denotes just the grave. It always refers to hell or Hades, which is the Greek word for the current hell. In some instances, Sheol may include the grave, but never just the grave. Sheol is always referred to Hades. The verses I use for hell is the word Sheol in the Hebrew. First, here are some definitions of the word Sheol. Hades, it corresponds to Sheol. It never denotes the grave. The King James Version wrongly rendered it the grave. That's the Vine's Expository Dictionary, page 286 and page 300. And then Dr. Chuck Missler, in his newsletter dated November 2003, said, "The Hebrew Sheol and the Greek Hades are not the grave. The grave is where the body goes. Sheol and Hades is where the departed spirits go." And then in the book Hell Under Fire, page 44, they point out that the actual word for grave is the word kiber, which is a burial site. And that word is used in Genesis 23:4, 1 Kings 13:30, 2 Samuel 3:32, 2 Chronicles 34:28, Numbers 19:16, Job 5:26, and many others. So in those instances, it's clear it's referring to a burial site. But in others, it's referring to hell. Now, to go on with some definitions, Nelson's New Illustrated Bible Dictionary, page 996 and page 1164, says, "In Old Testament thought, the abode of the dead, Sheol, is the Hebrew equivalent of the Greek Hades, which means the unseen world. Sheol was regarded as an underground region. As a deep underground place, the pit became synonymous with Sheol, the abode of the dead, the netherworld of departed spirits." New Bible Dictionary, page 1092, says, "Sheol was below the surface of the earth. Hades is therefore the New Testament equivalent of Sheol." The Life of Christ states, "The Old Testament uses of Sheol to describe the abode of the dead and divides it into two parts, as the righteous go there and the unrighteous." And then Dr. Erwin Lutzer, in his book 1 Minute After You Die, page 31 through 35, says, "We've learned that the Hebrew word for Sheol is used for the realm of the dead in the Old Testament. Sheol is always translated Hades. They are one and the same. That the word Sheol refers to the realm of departed spirits seems unmistakable. Just like Sheol, the word Hades is never used of the grave, but always refers to the world of departed spirits." And we look at the MacArthur Bible Commentary, page 1313 and 1332. He said, "Sheol, which referred to the realm of the dead in general. Sheol had two parts, one for the souls of the righteous and the other for the souls of the wicked." We look at the Moody Handbook of Theology, page 393. "The New Testament term used to describe the afterlife is Hades and is the equivalent to the Hebrew term Sheol." Unger's Commentary, page 765. "The pit is synonymous for Sheol." Harper's Bible Dictionary, page 674, says, "The Hebrew counterpart of the Greek and Roman gloomy underworld of departed spirits, Hades." And then in Believer's Bible Commentary, page 1433, "Hades is the Greek for the Old Testament word Sheol, the state of departed spirits. In the Old Testament period, it was spoken of as the abode of both saved and unsaved." The Dictionary of Biblical Imagery, page 198 and 647, says, "An inescapable underworld prison. The Old Testament pictures the realm of death or Sheol as being under the earth. Like a pit that represents it, it's pictured dark and deep." Couple more. The Great Doctrines of the Bible, page 296, says, "Sheol and Hades are identical. It has gates and bars." One last one. Holman's Illustrated Bible Dictionary, page 1482, says, "In a number of texts, persons are spoken of as descending to Sheol or going into the pit. This likely indicates that the Hebrews saw Sheol as something beneath their feet." Okay, so that's all those definitions, but I want to give you some verses also. These are some of the verses that the King James uses the word grave, but if you look it up, in the Hebrew, it's the word Sheol. Let's look at some of these verses. These are the verses that those that believe it's not about hell state. They say that it's not about hell, it's about the grave. Well, Isaiah 14:11 says, "Thy pomp is brought down to the grave." This is talking about the king of Babylon and actually Lucifer. And the Amplified Bible says, "brought down to Sheol, the underworld." So it's not just the grave. Believer's Bible, page 950, says, "Sheol's inhabitants are there to greet him." Again, not the grave. Matthew Henry's commentary, page 1106, says that there is an invisible world, a world of spirits to which the soul of men remove at death, and which they exist and act in a state of separation from the body. Psalms 30 verse 2 says, "Thou hast brought up my soul from the grave." But it's the word Sheol again. And that Unger says, "was brought up from Sheol, the netherworld. He did not go down to the pit, the infernal regions." That's Unger, page 788. Believer's Bible says, "a narrow escape from the dissolution of Sheol." That's page 589. Psalms 31:17 says, "Let them be silent in the grave," or Sheol. Believer's Bible, page 593, says, "The ones who are put to shame, who go speechless to Sheol." Again, see, it's not just the grave, it's Sheol, hell, the underworld. Isaiah 38:10 says, "I go to the gates of the grave," or Sheol. Unger says, "I shall go to the gates of Sheol, the gates of Hades." Matthew Henry's commentary, page 1148, says, "The Sheol, the Hades, the invisible world to which he saw his soul going." And then we look at some more verses here I'd like to go to. Psalms 49:15 says, "God will redeem my soul from the power of the grave." Again, the word Sheol. Believer's Bible, page 627, says, "God will deliver his soul from the disembodied state." Matthew Henry's commentary, page 814, says, "From the Sheol of hell, the wrath to come, the pit, the destruction into which wicked shall be cast." Ezekiel 31:15, "In the day when he went down to the grave." Again, the word Sheol. Believer's Bible, page 1059, "The Assyrian was dashed down to hell." Matthew Henry's commentary, page 1400, "Go down to the grave, to the nether parts of the earth. They were called away with those who go down to the pit." The Expositor's Study Bible says about that verse, page 1430, "does not refer to the burying of the body in a grave, but refers to Sheol. This is the place of departed spirits who are in hell." A few more verses. I just want to make this clear. Psalms 31:17 says, "Let the wicked be ashamed, and let them be silent in the grave," or again, Sheol. Matthew Henry's commentary, page 670, "We are at once to be removed to another world, the netherworld." Job 7:9, "He that goes down to the grave," or Sheol, "shall come up no more." Unger's commentary, page 688, "He would go to the place of the dead, the unseen world." Nelson's, page 622, says, "A place from which one would never return, a meeting house in the underworld." Jamieson Fawcett Brown's commentary, page 370, says, "Sheol, a place of departed spirits." Genesis 37:35 says, "I will go down to the grave unto my son mourning." Jamieson Fawcett Brown, again, page 43, says, "The unknown place of departed souls." Isaiah 38:18 says, "For the grave cannot praise thee. They that go down to the pit cannot hope for thy truth." The word grave again is the word Sheol. Matthew Henry's commentary, page 1148, says, "The Sheol, the Hades, the invisible world." Jamieson Fawcett Brown, page 556, says, "Hades and its inhabitants." So it's very clear by these verses, and I just want to give you a few more to continue this. There's some other verses that the King James uses the word hell, and it's still the word Sheol. So sometimes they use the word grave, and you look it up and it's the word Sheol. In this instance, these incidents, it's the word hell, but it's also the word Sheol, same thing. Isaiah 14:15 says, "Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit." It's the word Sheol again. Well, that's talking about Lucifer. So we know Lucifer isn't going to a grave. He's going to hell, to the sides of the pit. Proverbs 23:14 says, "Thou shalt beat him with a rod and deliver his soul from hell," or Sheol. That's talking about disciplining a child so he can avoid going to hell. Of course, it wouldn't be referring to a grave because you can't redeem your child from going to a grave. He's talking about hell. And also the word beat, if you get worried about that word beat the King James uses, it's actually the word strike or smote. It's not child abuse. Psalms 9:17, "The wicked shall be turned into hell, Sheol, and all nations that forget God." Well, that's obviously talking about hell, because everyone goes to the grave, but it says the wicked shall be turned into hell, and all nations that forget God. So that's referring to just the people that reject Jesus Christ. They'll end up in hell. Isaiah 5:14, therefore hell has enlarged herself, or Sheol has enlarged herself. Well, that's obviously not talking about a grave. It's talking about hell. Psalms 55:15 says, and let them go down quick into hell. David talking about his enemies. Matthew Henry's commentary, page 822, says, the souls of impenitent sinners go down quickly or alive into hell, the utter, final, and everlasting ruin. Proverbs 27:20, hell and destruction are never full. Well, obviously it's not talking about the grave, it's talking about hell. Again, it's the word Sheol. And Job 11:8, deeper than hell. Again, that's not the grave. Job 26:6, hell is naked before him, and destruction has no covering. So see, it ties hell with destruction. It's not the grave. Numbers 16:32 and 33 says, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed them up alive, and all their houses and all the men that pertained unto them, and went down alive into Sheol. So that's obviously not talking about all these people in their houses going into a grave. Job 17:16, they shall go down to the bars of the pit. And the word pit is the word Sheol. So we know that a grave doesn't have bars. And one more verse, Psalms 116:3, the pains of hell, or Sheol, got hold upon me. I found trouble and sorrow. So that's obviously talking about hell, not the grave. So there's many more verses I could give you, and I hope you can see that this would clarify for you, clarify the meaning of the word Sheol or grave. There's a difference. So whenever the Bible uses the word Sheol in the King James or any Bible, it's referring to the current hell or Hades. It's not referring to the grave. Thank you so much for listening.